thanks to everyone for joining us today. This is, as you can tell, our first Canto Connect that is virtual, and it's also our first event that's hyper-specific for a key industry that we love to work with, which is the higher education industry, including colleges, universities. You'll notice we have some people from private high schools here, really any marketers and creatives from higher education. The goal of this meeting in particular was to get everyone in the same room to, one, meet everybody. We really are all about facilitating connections and networking, and we believe that our customers are happier and more successful the more they could meet and learn from each other, and also to see how some of our customers are using Canto specifically. So you'll notice today we have an amazing lineup of speakers, both from schools and outside of schools, but all experts in the higher education space. We're going to have a few people are going to be showing how they're using Canto. And at the end of the meeting today, we're going to have a panel that's actually zooming out a little bit to focus on the trends that we're seeing in the world today. Obviously, things have been changing quite a bit. The world is a crazy place right now. We could have said that 2 months ago, and it's even more true today. At Canto, we're sensitive to everything going on, and we are very aware that, you know, this is an uncertain time, not just in higher education or tech, but for everybody. And we think that that makes it even more important that we bring everyone together and give everyone a chance to just voice how they're feeling, to kind of build some new connections and just kind of be all in this together. So at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do. Before we get into the details there, just a quick preview of what we have planned for today. We're going to kick things off with Tadson Bussey from the UCDA. For those of you that don't know what the UCDA is, it's an incredible organization that Canto's partnered with that's specifically geared towards designers in higher education. I don't want to steal Tadson's thunder, but in addition to telling us what he's working on, he's also going to preview arguably, and I mean no offense to anyone in here, the most beautiful Canto portal that I think I've seen. He's done an incredible job customizing and designing it, so we're excited to see that. From there, we have Xavier Rivera from USC Upstate, who put together a really powerful commencement video with all of their graduating seniors utilizing Canto upload links. So he's going to show us how he did that. After that, we have Rowena McPherson from University of Maine at Presque Isle. It might actually be the smallest school that we work with. Don't quote me on that. I'll let Rowena fact check me. But she's put together a really incredible style guide that's helped empower all of her faculty to basically create their own marketing materials on brand while they're all working remote. So we're super excited to see how she did that. Following that, we have a higher level panel discussion with Matt Lester, who is a photographer with a specialty in higher education. If any of you have seen my LinkedIn photo, he's the one that makes me look like I'm a TED speaker, which I'm super proud to show. We also have Gina Gray, who's the art director at University of Dayton, and Jesse Calderon, who's a multimedia specialist that works for Studio Enterprise. So the four of us are going to be talking about trends in higher education. Up next, we have Tadson Bussey from the UCDA. Super excited that Tadson agreed to jump on and share his experience with us and also what UCDA is all about. Without further ado, Tadson, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Jack. Thank you for that complimentary introduction. Appreciate that. We've been using Canto now for just over a year, and so it's been a good learning experience. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. All right. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
So as Jack mentioned, we're the University and College Designers Association. We are a professional association for, and basically we have 4 different groups. Primarily, we are the designer or creative professional in higher ed. So they're working in-house, so publications office, alumni office, marketing office, a lot of where you guys work. So those are our biggest core members. We also have the folks who work at private institutions, design firms, agencies that do work for educational institutions. And then our third and fourth market are design educators who teach graphic design, and then their students. So we're specifically educational institutions, although we have college and university in our name. We do offer more to secondary institutions and that type of thing as well. So we do offer different programs throughout the year, in addition to our Designer Magazine, which is our quarterly magazine that we produce. We have our UCDA Creative Summit, our Design Education Summit, and our Design Conference. Those are our three big events that we do annually. We also just started the UCDA Essential Webinar Series, which has been well received, and actually Matt is on the agenda later this summer. For those interested, we do UCDA workshops, which are temporarily on hold, and then our UCDA Design Awards. So our Design Awards program is where we use Canto currently, and so that's what I'm going to sort of focus on today. And what I'm going to basically do is this year or last year, we did a print and digital competition. I'll go over that process with you. I'll showcase how we showed off the winners or showcased the winners previous to 2019 and what we used, and then how we migrated that into the Canto and Canto portals. So don't have a lot of time, so I'll go over those, and then finally we'll sort of mention what's next, at least for us, in implementing and using Canto moving forward. So that said, I'm going to show a quick video of the print and digital process from last year. And can everyone see the video? Okay, thank you. So our UCD Design Awards, last year we had 1,061 entries. This was a day in June of last year where we physically set up all those entries. We bring in the judges, so they're peer reviewed, so they're either working at institutionals or for institutions, or we have design educators as well. And they spend the day with us and they look at every single piece and narrow it down to the pieces they want to move forward in the show. So this is next is our Design Awards. That is in conjunction with our UCDA Design Conference. Last year it was in Portland, Oregon. And so basically we take over 1/3 of the ballroom, and we want to showcase those winners. So last year we had 6 gold, 11 silver, and 215 excellence awards for a total of 232 awards. And so we sort of set up the room sort of like a gallery to show the pieces. So we also have an awards ceremony in conjunction with this, where people who are present can come up, get their award, be recognized for their outstanding work. Once the awards show is over, we then open up the show at the hotel and showcase all the winners. So we have 60 plus categories, from mobile apps to websites to videos to posters to view books to alumni magazines is one of our bigger categories. Canto, this year we brought in monitors to highlight the digital awards, so people could actually watch the videos, go to the websites, and take a look at that. And there was Jack handing out his business card, work in the room, which is great. So he was there to answer questions that people had when they were looking at the portal as well. So of all these pieces, people go in there and really sort of try to get inspired and see what's going on in educational design. And so that was last year's show. I'm going to pop over to my browser here if I can, and sort of show you, what we do from that aspect. So let me close that. Sorry. Tech issues. There we go. So this is our website. On our website, we actually have the Design Awards link, so you can, and I'll put these links in the chat when I'm done presenting. But within the Design Awards, we've got a lot of information here. It's actually still going on. Our deadline is actually tomorrow for the awards, but if anyone is interested in this group, I'd be happy to give you guys an extension to enter some work if you want. Shameless self-promotion there, sorry. But anyway, so on our Design Awards website, we have a past winners section. And what I wanted to do is sort of show you again what we were doing prior to Canto and how we sort of migrated it. So if we go into the 17 awards, we were actually using Flickr as sort of a gallery view. So here's Flickr, here's all the pieces. It's basically one slide or one image for the show. Most just have the award, the title, the category, and so forth. But the problem with this was it was fine for the flat print pieces. What do we do with the videos or, oops, if I go to page 3, if I go to videos or websites, it becomes very static. So you look here, here's a winner, here's the video category. It's just a screenshot. Here's the website. It's a screenshot of the homepage. So it's not really interactive. It's not really engaging and showing off why this piece was an actual winner. So it worked for our needs, but we just knew there could be more. This could be more interactive. So if we go to our portal, we actually created 2 portals. The first one was just for the digital winners that we showcased at the conference, because people are actually going to go in there for, they actually see the printed pieces in person, so we didn't need to show all the pieces there. So we just highlighted the digital pieces there, but then after the conference, we were able to go ahead and put all the print categories up, all the digital categories in-house, and then our special awards. And what's nice about this is you go to the sort of what I call the back end. Here's all the videos. You can click on it. Actually, they can view the actual video and see it, as well as if we go to the websites. When you go in here, we actually have our custom fields where you have the URL and it links directly to the site. So people don't even have to enter the URL in, it's there, people can click on it. What's also nice about this, and I've got just 1 minute left, is again, this is all searchable. You can search by award, you can search by the category. If I wanted to see, Brian, see how many awards he won that year, we can go ahead and search. It'll pull up all those for us. So it's a nice, it became interactive, it became more user-friendly, better user experience for the attendees or anyone who's looking at this. And it was a nice way to sort of showcase all the awards. So this basically replaced Flickr. So really quick, where we're going next with this is we obviously are not meeting in person for the judges this year. So we're going to be putting all 1,000 entries onto Canto and have the judges come through Canto and actually do the judging. So that is going to be exciting. They'll actually judge it. We can then get the results and then create a new portal with the winners. And 2, we'll start migrating past winners onto this. So if we can search, it's not just searching from 2019 forward, but also back since we're in our 45th anniversary. So.
Awesome. Well, how about we give a virtual round of applause for Tadson? Thanks, Tadson.
Thank you.
It's not the same if you can't hear it. Also, I don't know what kind of camera you're using, but you look amazing right now. I love the pixel. It's sharp. It's nice resolution.
Many cam.
Got it. I knew it was something fancy. All right. So next up, we have Xavier Rivera from USC Upstate. I have to make the joke I've made a couple times. That's not University of Southern California Upstate. It's University of South Carolina Upstate. And how he used Canto upload links to ingest photos from graduating seniors to make a really personal, powerful commencement video. Without further ado, Javier.
Hello, thanks for everybody coming to this webinar. I think this is going to be very helpful. And I think for us, if you guys have ideas, please send them our way, because I love the idea of sharing knowledge. So our project essentially was, the main goal was really to honor our 2020 graduates during this COVID situation. And we knew we weren't going to have a live commencement. So obviously we needed to honor them some way. So we decided to get photos from all the students and create a video highlighting them. And so we needed upload links. In fact, that's really the only way we made this happen. So thank you, Canto. And like any project, there are many stages. So obviously we needed to create the upload link, which is very easy to do. Canto has a lot of tutorials, video tutorials, and there is one on this. We had to send an email out to the graduates asking for the photos. We needed to get those photos organized, otherwise mayhem would ensue. And then the actual production. Now, these are main stages. There's so many little things in between, but obviously there's a lot more work. Anybody who's created video knows that there's quite a bit more in that stage. Afterwards, once it's complete, we had the chancellor send an email with a congratulatory message, and the video was embedded in the email so that all the students and parents could see that as well. We also promoted it on our social websites and our personal website. Okay, so upload links. Again, these tutorials that you can find on Canto's website are very easy to follow. Alicia, our account manager, was the one who really turned me on to this, and many thanks to her for that. But it's found in the settings, and there's a tab that says links and connections, and that's where you create an upload link. I won't get into too many of the details of how that works, but I will give suggestions in a second here. For the email that we sent out, we really wanted students to know that this is their opportunity to make it personal. So, you know, we asked them to go ahead and be creative, but because this was going to be viewed for the whole family, we just be a little aware of what you're wearing and what you're posing as. We did request that they send only one photo, otherwise it would have been a nightmare to try to filter through all of them. I think there was just a small amount of people who sent in like 5, and we just kind of decided which one to use. Highest quality on the device. Now this, I have a note about this later, but getting them to shoot on their camera, the best, and for the most part, it's going to be cell phones. Limit the amount of people. Now I have a sample that I'm going to show you in a second here. Immediately we ran into issues where people were sending group shots, and they're not going to show up in the video. It's too many people. People are going to have to get cut off, and you just really can't see any detail. So we sent a follow-up email a week later showing what worked. So obviously the group shots aren't very good. If you look at the girls on the top right, there was, I think, 6 people there and only 4 show up because of how we had to crop it. And then we had the perfect example, which is what the second email afterwards, the flooding of emails or the flooding of photos came in really, really nice. So things we learned, we decided that we really should send these emails from the appropriate department. In our case, it was enrollment. The head of that department has access to the actual graduates. So an email wasn't being sent to all students. It was being sent directly to the graduates. The deadline was really important because it does take time to produce the video. So sticking firm with that deadline is very important. And this is where I think we really need to work on. The first email that we sent out really should have included my name and email for technical questions. Eventually I would answer these questions, but they had to go through a couple channels, and that's something we're gonna fix for the next time. That reminder email where we showed the actual examples was very helpful. I think we could do that example one in the first email. And it did help to kind of remind them, hey, we're looking for these photos. We actually got more photos after the second email. So going back to organization, really, if you if you handle these many photos, there's got to be a system. So for us in Canto, what we did was we created a project folder, and within there we had 3 different albums. One album was for the raw photos that they would send into us. Then Les, our photographer, Les Duggins, who's an amazing photographer and person, he cleaned up the photos and made them the proper size for the template that we were using. And he put those in another folder for us to use in the photo or in the video. And our video assistant, Zach Thomas, who is awesome. I hope he's signed on right now, so he heard me say that. But he's the one who actually took all those cleaned up photos, put it into the template, created the main video, and then transferred it to me, where I did a little bit of touching up. But really, this was a team effort. And part of that organization was tags. So really finding a way to make it easy for us to all find it in case somebody came in and said, hey, I sent in a photo. Can you make sure that it's there? This is a great, very easy way to search for that. I'm going to show a few seconds of the video. This is what was produced. And I'll let you watch this just for a few seconds. I can provide the link to the full video if you like. Thank you. I hope this was informative, and please send any questions you have about this project or anything of what we're using in Canto my way. I'm happy to answer anything.
Thanks a lot, Javier. We will get to Q&A with Javier after our next presentation. So again, feel free to throw any questions you have and we'll get to that. But before we do, we also have Rowena McPherson from University of Maine at Presque Isle, who has done, again, an amazing job putting together a custom style guide for her and her team. Rowena, take it away.
All right, just let me get this screen up and shared. All right, can you see my, I can't tell. Are you seeing my screen at this point?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. All right. Like I said, I am Rowena McPherson from the University of Maine at Presque Isle, and we are a very small rural campus. We are almost the most northern campus in Maine. We've got one more a couple hours north, right on the border, University of Maine at Fort Kent, our sister college. So I'm really happy to be here and share our little story. So again, being a small college, we work from a very small office with a very small budget. There's a total of 4 of us in our marketing and communications office, hence my title being, you know, a big mouthful of stuff that I do. But one of the things that I am responsible for, and I've been called, I'm the gatekeeper of the UMPI brand. So it's a really big deal for our little tiny rural college to have a solidified brand that can be recognized nationally. I mean, that is the ultimate goal for, I think, any higher ed institution is trying to bring in students and people from all over. So it's important as a small school with a small budget to do as much as we can in a way that makes the most sense and gives us the most bang for our buck. So with that said, we started, well, let me give you a little bit of background here. So I've been in graphic design for about 23 years. About 3.5 years ago, I got into higher ed with UMPI, which is also my alma mater. Go Owls. So I took on this position and I ended up kind of inheriting this hodgepodge of branding. They had their logo, they had their tagline, but it was not, it wasn't really cohesive. So let's see, I'm seeing chat stuff. So we decided that, you know, some things had to be done about that. So one of the first things was coming up with this branding statement, which they had never had before. And this was different than a vision or mission statement because it actually just verbalizes who we are and how we want to be seen. And it keeps us focused on our messaging. In the process of coming up with the branding statement, it was part of an entire brand book overhaul, which we made into basically a how-to playbook for anyone, you know, creating items that were representative of the university. So you can see that there. So the importance of identity was definitely to increase our campus's visibility. And not just our visibility, but an understanding of the work that we were doing on campus and conducting in the community and the state and beyond. For instance, right now we are still housing students that were essentially stranded when we were all sent home after, you know, the COVID-19 pandemic was, you know, blew up. You know, so we still have students, a number of them from China, who are still living on campus right now that we're housing and taking care of. We also turned our Woodine Hall gymnasium into essentially a homeless shelter because our local shelters were getting overrun, overworked. So we were helping with resources, and our whole system works that way. So, but beyond that visibility, we also needed to position ourselves effectively among our competitors. And again, being a small campus, this was really a vital point. You know, and these are competitors that we compare ourselves to. I mean, there's definitely a difference between, you know, a large college versus our little tiny one. And our enrollment is about 1,400 people, just to put that into context. And then we wanted to make sure that our commitment to excellence in education and our service to our students and community are part of that, persona that we were putting out as a university. And we base that around an ethic of care, which is that touch point, making a touch point for our students wherever we possibly can, and being very focused in on what they're doing, how they're reacting, how they're dealing with certain situations, especially right now. So in doing that, like I said, I've been at UMPI for 3.5 years and inherited that kind of inconsistent brand. So the first thing I started to do was updating the graphic design work so that it all looked similar and had that cohesive feel. Through that consistent messaging, I was working closely with my boss, who is the director of marketing and communication. She's amazing. My whole crew is amazing. I love them. I'm very, very lucky. But we also worked really closely with admissions and enrollment. Another very fortunate thing for me is that our college, our university, all of the departments actually work pretty well together. So very, very lucky. I've heard horror stories from a few other people that it's not always like that. So I'm very fortunate. But in doing this, we had departments that, though we all got along, they were used to doing things a certain way. And in order for me to bring that all together, I had to reach out and I had to take control. And that was a little tough, especially kind of being the new kid on the block, but it was important. And I managed to get buy-in from our faculty and staff by just consistently showing them the results of what the new marketing direction we were doing was happening. So by doing this, I was able to start to wean these departments off from Marcom because, again, I'm the sole designer and photographer for the university. So that's a lot to do. And so we started to wean them off. We were working on that. And then, COVID kind of, derailed a lot of my plans for further implementing Canto. We haven't been with Canto a year yet. So this was a work in progress, but as a really small office, we were desperate. I was desperate for something that would help me manage our assets in a way that I could also share with the rest of my campus community so that I could do this kind of weaning them off and moving them to doing their own thing within the brand standards. So this has been a very, very successful over the last 3 years. We've moved into this. We actually, I think for the first time in many, many years, we actually instituted a campaign, a campus-wide, university-wide campaign on top of our general identity, which we could never do before because we didn't have that consistency. So in addition to Canto helping us, really solidify and hold together that identity, we're able to feed in this additional stuff for our campaign, which is the way it should be. Let's see, want to be conscious of our time here. So in any case, so moving on to, this brand was built, solidified, and one of the first things I did with Canto is I started to, set up the branding immediately within the portal or my Canto site in and of itself, so that anybody that I invited to see our site would immediately see the branding that was already there, even before the rest of it was organized. My blues, my golds, they were all there. My logo was there. The typeface, all of that stuff was really, really important that I made it, that it was there immediately. That was my job, and I took it very seriously. So consistency equals stability, and right now, stability is extremely important. Getting feedback from our students and whatnot, knowing that consistency, that we're always going to be there, that they can expect certain things from us, and that's going to happen. So that consistency was really, really important because perception is everything. And when the perception is that you are unorganized or unprofessional, that starts to eat away and erode that foundation that we were trying to create. So the other thing is that this consistent identity also helps with our pride, the community pride, the OWL pride right on campus. And then of course it saves time and money because it reduces the amount of redundancy that the different departments were working on. It was one set of materials, could be translated throughout the university. So hence Canto, basically what Canto is for me as far as the style guide goes, is it streamlined the branding guidelines. Our brand book is, I don't know, it's like 40 pages or something. And very few people, especially faculty, staff, are going to sit down and read all 40 pages. So the Canto Style Guide allowed me to really streamline that and give people exactly what they needed right away. It gave them access to the correct logos, so I didn't have to worry about those little tiny pixelated ones they downloaded off the website or from a Google search. They could actually access the right one. It gave them easy downloads of templates such as letterhead and envelopes, a PowerPoint presentation. They could just go in and download those templates. And then it also allowed for consistent imagery, colors, and typefaces. And so this is just kind of a real quick look at what our style guide looks like. And so you can see that it allows for primary and secondary colors with the PMS, as well as an RGB breakdown and the hex code. I'm going to have to put in a little suggestion to Canto. Let's make the CMYK separate so we can have those two different colors. My RGBs don't always match up with my CMYKs, and I think that's probably a general issue for a lot of people. So anyway, but this allows for those numbers and things can be there. So if somebody, we're having an outside, they know what our PMS colors are, and they can go and they can find them and get the exact accurate one to keep our brand on point. It allows for those university logo downloads, as I said, and those are broken up into, based on the color configuration. So I've got my blue and gold, I've got my black and white and grayscale, and then some solid color ones. And then the athletics logo is treated differently at the university and is only used for very specific athletics usage. And this explains all of that, but allows for those athletic logos to be downloaded as well. Again, with a stipulation, that this section of the style guide actually describes what the athletic logo can be used for. And then our typography, and you can upload actual typefaces here to allow people, if you've got that kind of license, to allow it. But again, it's a description of how those typefaces are used in general, hence like Future being more of a header font and our Adobe Garamond being more of a body copy. And then finally, the stationary templates and PowerPoint presentations in there. So there's just a couple examples of the type of templates that people can download. And then I've also included the actual brand book in our style guide. So as a reference point, at any time, somebody can go in there and really dig into our voice, the type of imagery, and so on and so forth. So again, it was just really, really important that that style guide be set up. And I was so glad that it got set up when it did, because I had the majority of this already done and well underway before we were all sent home. And this has been very, very handy in being able to feed that to the faculty and staff and admins and whatnot who are now working from home, and all of us being away from each other. So that is, I hope I didn't go over too long. That is the basics on how we use our style guide and how it's really keeping our brand consistent, even though we are all very much distanced at this time. So thank you.
Awesome. Very well said. That was super cool. We have some good questions trickling in, and we have a couple minutes to address them. I actually had a really quick question. How long did it take you to make that style guide? Like approximately, like how big of an undertaking was that?
Honestly, it wasn't that bad. I think part of it was the fact that I had the brand book was done. So I knew I had all of those little pieces that I needed. And then it was a matter of going in, doing one of those little trainings, learning how to use the, even just setting up the style guide. I got that roughed in, and then after that, it was just kind of fine tuning what I wanted people to have access to and what I didn't. And I really like that part of Canto too, is being able to drill down on those permissions.
And now everyone has it favorited on their bookmarks bar on Google Chrome?
Oh, I hope so. Not sure about that, but the ones that need it, they're using it, so it's good.
Okay. And we also had a question for Xavier from Trevor at University of Alberta. He was asking about issues with the digital footprint Javier, I know you addressed it in the chat, but would you mind elaborating on that as well?
Sure, of course. So this is what was helpful of creating separate albums, to have the raw footage, raw photos that were sent in from the students, and then the touched up photos from Les. Once we had everything in place and the video was complete, we just can go to that album of the pre-edit and just eliminate that. And that was the quick way of doing the duplicate files.
Awesome.
Thank
Did we
you.
have any, sorry, was that Trevor?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks.
Oh, awesome. Do we have any other questions for these two?
I have a question for Javier. Could he expand on how he used tags to keep track of which images he edited and which ones didn't? Because I mean, I see the two photos, but then I imagine going back a little bit later, like, okay, how do you keep track of which ones they were done and which one? So if you could expand on that.
Great question. So we had this whole system going, and it was great. So for me, I would tag, because these photos were coming in at all times of the hour or all times of the day. And so I would transfer them over to the folder twice a day. There was an AM and a PM. So it'd be like the beginning of the workday and then the evening. And I would tag those with the date and a PM or AM. And so they knew what was new, what was fresh, what hadn't been used. And then Les had a tag that specifically said that it was complete. And then he put those in that folder. Tagging saved a lot of back and forth. Like, okay, we need to look at the whole project to make sure we didn't already use this photo.
Okay, thank you.
Great
for
question.
If I could ask a question of Rowena, if we have a second. We also have pretty extensive brand guidelines, and we're looking at how to actually transfer those over from, we currently have a custom CMS site that we use. I think we'll be streamlining them as well, but I was just curious if you kind of ran into or bumped into any kind of limitations aside from what you mentioned for the CMYK specs, if there was any other learnings you got out of that part of the build.
It was, I'll be honest, the trickiest part for me was learning the different permissions and where certain things needed to be housed within the folder hierarchy to be allowed to be seen within the style guide itself. So that was a little bit tricky, but I mean, not terribly. It was a matter of, okay, slow down, let's look at the steps. And once I actually did that, it was right there. So yeah, not so much as far as that, but I also haven't, the way I'm using it is meant to be very streamlined and broken down because I don't want to just repeat or regurgitate my brand book. I wanted it to be, easier to read for those people who are not design nerds and not interested in what the CMYK breakdown is of a color. Or why. So yeah, this was just really, really simplified. I know some people have used, included like specific imagery within their style guide as well. Within my brand book, I've got some samples, but how I've addressed that is that by department, I have allowed certain folders of imagery to be allowed. So my enrollment and admissions group have a set of images that they use frequently. And then slightly different, the financial aid department has a slightly different set of images that work for them better. And that's become an absolute lifesaver since we've all split and are working from home because they've had to address certain situations differently as well. So the admissions have switched, obviously to all virtual types of meetings and things. And so their imagery and their needs had increased because they were creating more touch points with their students. So being able to give them those assets and allow them that kind of free range, knowing that they're going to keep within brand because of what I've given them for tools has been a real lifesaver for me.
Great, thanks. I'm looking forward to digging into it.
Oh, you're welcome.
Awesome. I know we probably have a bunch more questions for these two, but quick, another virtual round of applause for Rowena and Javier. That was awesome. They've both offered to answer questions. If you want to shoot them an email, we're going to exchange emails after this event. But obviously, you have your Canto team as well. Your account manager can help walk through any of these things if you want to look more in depth at them. But again, Rowena and Javier, thank you very much. That was really cool to see. Cool. So our next portion of Canto Connect is going to be a little bit zoomed out from actually using Canto and more about the higher education space right now amongst everything going on and what teams are doing to prepare for it. But be on the lookout for Jesse from Studio Enterprise. Again, he's an expert in video production, multimedia production, works with a few different schools, and he's kind of bringing that expertise to the panel. We also have Gina from University of Dayton. She's the art director over there. She's also the president of the UCDA, and she's super talented. So she's going to have that design background. And Matt Lester, who actually runs Matthew Lester Photography, and he photographs for, I don't know if it's hundreds. I'll let Matt elaborate on that, but the work he does is incredible. So he's bringing that photography background. And the four of us want to have a quick introductory discussion, talking about first and foremost how the higher education landscape is changing right now, both pre and post COVID, because there were some changes going on before everything kind of settled in. How teams are adjusting to that, both to help their faculty transition to remote learning, and also changes in the strategy of how to market your campus, given that things may be virtual this fall, or they may be a hybrid, or maybe they'll be back, but that uncertainty in general. And then what tools, in addition to Canto, we could just focus on Canto, but we don't have to, but what tools are enabling that virtual coordination and collaboration right now? So we're going to go through a quick round of intros. Jesse, Gina, and Matt would be a good time to unmute yourselves as we jump into this panel here. They're going to each introduce themselves and a little bit of background. We're also going to talk about really quick icebreaker. One thing that we've discovered during COVID that's been a pleasant surprise. I was going to talk about one thing, but I now feel obligated to say that I've really enjoyed spending more time with my fiance at home. We were supposed to get married in March, and now we're looking to get married. We don't really know when, but it has been nice spending more time with her in the apartment, and that has been a pleasant surprise of COVID that I'm grateful for. I will just throw Jesse up next. Jesse, you want to give a quick introduction here?
I wish mine was as diplomatic as yours. I'm Jesse Calderoni. I am a digital media coordinator for Studio Enterprise. We are a education service company that does everything from marketing to compliance to whatever else. I'm in the marketing arm of it and the compliance arm. We use Canto to govern releases, video, virtual editing rooms, everything like that. I have a background in film production, videography, and all that. I'm here today to talk about video and marketing and how that works these days. I find I have a somewhat interesting perspective. Even 2 or 3 years ago, working between New York and Los Angeles in the IT space, I was already fairly virtual, and then I started working from home here in North Carolina last year around this time. So I've been entirely in this room for the last 365 days. So COVID barely was noticeable to me. I have a lot of experience working virtually, and it's fascinating to see everyone else adapt. And I think it's really a cool thing. We're going to get into talking about the plus sides of it. As far as the personal plus side, I've really enjoyed watching my parents become tech savvy. My mom knows all the angles to hold a phone at now, so she doesn't have all the chins. And well, my dad hasn't figured it out, but he tries, and it's really adorable to watch. So that's been nice.
Awesome. Thank you. Gina, would you like to go next?
Sure. So Gina Gray, I'm at the University of Dayton. And as we are we're going to say this forever, that we believe our basketball team would have won the NCAA championship this year, and that'll be forever. We'll always have this year. So, bit unfortunate. Our basketball team was doing really well. So, But I've been at the university for about 13 years, previously in more corporate environments, but I think that has helped with my love of sort of the brand and getting things like really consistent. We were centralized and we kind of decentralized. Now we're probably going to go back to centralized. So it's been fun. That wave that we're riding. I'm also very involved in UCDA. I'm the president of the board this year. And so it's been a challenging time, but I think that we're all just really getting used to that. Like every day, something new, a new challenge. And kind of like Jesse, so like one of my favorite things is that in the beginning of this, in March, I started doing Thursday night happy hours with my family on Zoom. And it's like my dad, my stepmom, my mom, my whole family, my sisters, my stepbrothers, my stepsisters, one stepbrother's in Argentina. So we've consistently done this every Thursday night. So what's amazing about it is that I have learned so much more about my family than I knew. I've talked to them way more than I ever talked to them before. So I think that connection has been really great. Sometimes the call lasts half an hour. Sometimes it's 2.5 hours. It kind of depends on what people want to talk about. So anyway, that's been kind of my happy thing that's happened.
Awesome. And last but not least, we got Matt Lester. I should shout out that Gina's background was a photo taken by Matt. Matt, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Matt Lester. I'm a photographer based out of Pennsylvania, and I specialize in higher ed admissions and marketing photography, from anywhere from small colleges up to state universities all over the United States. So that's kind of my background. And this has definitely been an interesting time in terms of just that transition, because most of all my work is on location. And so this spring season has been really sort of a transition where I'm usually on campus photographing, and that just didn't happen this season because of COVID. And I don't think anybody saw that coming. And it's been interesting to sort of have to adapt and pivot to that. So we're going to be talking a bit about that in the session. My favorite thing that from this is my wife had this great idea to walk the whole city. We live in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and it's a smaller city. It has about 100 miles of streets. So her idea was to kind of walk the whole city. So we bought a paper map, and we've been kind of marking off every street we've walked, and we're about 70% done. And it's been a lot of fun. It's sort of like traveling in our own town, because we're noticing these little details we've never seen before and going down streets that we've never seen. And we've lived here about 15 years. So we're really kind of rediscovering where we've lived and where we live. And that's been a lot of fun. It's been a fun project. And it's also given me a creative outlet to photograph this and take photos. And so I've been able to kind of photograph and take this time to photograph, which has been nice.
And two things to note, I learned this the hard way. Don't call it Lancaster, right? It's Lancaster.
That is true, yes. We learned that too when we moved here, so.
Right. And the second thing is, it is in the heart of Amish country, but I don't think Matt is Amish.
I'm not. I have the beard, but I'm not Amish.
Okay. Awesome. So those are the intros. I want to preface this panel discussion by saying that we're hoping that this will kind of kick off a more engaged breakout session, which we're planning at the 10:20 mark, which means we're going to have to abridge this panel portion a little bit, because I do think that the breakout session is going to be one of the more valuable parts of this Canto Connect today. So I would encourage you to kind of use the topics that we discuss here really quickly as a launching pad for when you get into your breakout discussion. And if we're obviously in the middle of a thought, we'll start that a little bit later. But this is a huge conversation with multiple levels. To start, we thought it would be helpful to talk about the challenges and the uncertainties that exist with a virtual learning environment, and literally everything that encompasses, but also the successes and possibilities that proposes as well. So kind of the two sides of the coin that universities are facing given this transition to virtual learning. Anybody want to start with that?
Sure. I mean, the biggest challenge is, getting people to actually commit and engage. And I think that was such a hard transition for those students to have to be removed from that environment and then have to continue on with their classes. And there's some technology, I mean, obviously these students are, as we say, digital natives, but they're not necessarily, they might not have the equipment that's needed. So I think, and then there's just that motivation, like, do they have the motivation to want to do what they needed to do? So I think that they probably got used to it towards the end, but I think the biggest challenge was just keeping them engaged and keeping them feeling like they're part of this community while not being on campus.
Mm.
I definitely would agree with that. It's been interesting too. We have a high school senior and also a high school freshman, and senior, he's in a dual enrollment program at a local college here. And so it was interesting to watch their transition to online learning and to pivot to that. And it seemed like I've been really impressed. I mean, with all these schools, just in terms of how quickly they're able to pivot and take their curriculum online, and also just professors being able to, switch from in-classroom learning to this virtual kind of setup. And it's been, I think people have done really well and been really adaptable in these circumstances. The other thing that's been really interesting too with that is how admissions have changed. Our son, who's a senior, in the fall, he's going out to Chicago to DePaul University for their film program, and we weren't able to visit the school at all and take a tour before kind of COVID hit. So we didn't have that opportunity to actually visit campus. And a lot of these schools have done a really great job in terms of shifting campus tours online, tours of housing, all sorts of Zoom groups for prospective students, and that really highlight each school's programs and departments and things like that. So I think a lot of schools have done a really good job just transitioning and kind of finding ways to switch online and still create that community with students.
I think online and community are important words here. In my space, we have a lot of, not my space, my personal job space. We have a lot of schools that are trying to do virtual tours. They're very jumpy, concerned, as we all are. How do we take that experience of showing a teenager a beautiful campus away from home and change it to being on the internet? It's a tough thing. During this panel, actually, I've already had one school pivot completely. Rather than going for B-roll and nice shots of their campus, where's all the glamour that we have? They want to talk. They want to have people address the students face-to-face, much like we're doing now. It brings into question, what is the heart of your school? What is your school? Is it a bunch of buildings that are really nice? Is it a meal plan? Is it freedom? Or is it education, community, things that are going to prepare them for the future, specific job training, or a even virtual relationship with a professor who is qualified to guide you to your next stage? I think this is a very needed time of thinking about what the real priorities are in attracting people.
Yeah. And just to, again, I wish we had a lot more time than we do to kind of jump into we had a lot of different topics planned. I think one thing that would be helpful before we jump into the breakout sessions would be to hear all of your thoughts on, I know we kind of touched on it, but what are the opportunities that this presents? I know that we've heard that it gives it a chance to expand geographically, to change the pricing model for different students from different demographics. It would be interesting to hear each of your perspectives on what this unique opportunity provides to schools to kind of change up their strategy a little bit for the good.
Yeah, the very pleasant outcome of this is that everything we're doing now, this is being recorded. Everything's being recorded now. Everything's video. That's all archivable material, reusable material. Every lecture you record, everything. The more you keep, the more you have. And I think I've said before, if you're not an online school, maybe you should think about it right now. The opportunity to engage people that are not able to attend your university, not able to travel that far, cannot afford the room and board. I think this is a time to reach across economic lines, since technology is affordable for so many people. It may be a time for people to experience education in a new way that might not have experienced at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that we talked about how, I mean, before all of this, higher ed was already going into this period of generationally, we don't have that many students who are turning 18 and are coming into school. So we need to figure out, we already were trying to figure out, let's brainstorm, how do we maybe get some more non-traditional students? And so this is just, as Jack had said, it's like an accelerant. We've had to figure it out very quickly. So now we have, it might be kind of clunky. And we've, I think, made some, you know, we're building the plane as we're flying it. But now that we have some of these things set up, we can maybe try to figure out how can we then offer that education to more people and keep our numbers. And so this has sort of been our trial phase, I think, to kind of figure out how that's going to keep going into the future.
I think it definitely changes the marketing too. And one of the trends that I've really seen that shifted is sort of showing outcomes and less sort of talking about student life on campus, things like that, but really showing the value of an education at whatever institution that might be. And so one of the things I've really seen is a lot of publications that are sent out that have portraits of students or former students, and just sort of tell the story of what they're doing now, what job they might have, internships, things like that. And really a shift to sort of more outcome-based marketing and less experiential marketing, it seems like. And I'm thinking that's really a trend right now, and kind of, which really ties into sort of expanding away from a campus model to something broader.
Yeah. So I guess I should probably finish by apologizing for trying to fit such a juicy panel into such a little amount of time. For anyone at Canto that works with me, they can tell you that's one of the things I do wrong all the time, is I underestimate how much time things will take. I do want to make sure we have time for everyone to break out and kind of continue the conversation. If this was valuable, we might have to schedule another time to let this panel kind of go off, because there's so much knowledge here. But I do want you to have time to kind of break out and discuss amongst yourselves. So really quick, thanks to the three of you for jumping in here to just get the conversation started. And we can talk about doing a part 2 another time. Other than that, thank you so much for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your week, and stay safe, and we'll be in touch. Thanks, everybody.